Did we discover an ancient inscription that confirms the historical accuracy of the first 5 books of Moses? Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion. Let's take a look at a video.
So the earliest writings in the Bible are the first 5 books, and these are the 5 books of Moses. And they were written at the end of the 15th century BC.
All right, let's see it.
So in the books of Moses, one of them, the book of Numbers, Moses talks about a seer named Balaam, son of Beor. And at this time, the Israelites are camped out in the Jordan Valley on the plains of Moab. Balak, king of Moab, sends messengers to Balaam, son of Beor, to summon him to come and to put a curse on this people Israel.
So the first thing to note here is that we have absolutely no data that indicate the nation of Moab existed in the 15th or even the 14th century BCE. Moab, like Israel, is considered a territorial or a secondary state that arose as the hegemony of Egypt was receding within this territory. And this happens toward the end of the 13th century BCE and then more so in the 12th century BCE. And the earliest data that we have for either the nation of Moab or the nation of Israel actually comes from the end of the 13th century BCE. So Moab likely begins as Egyptian influence is waning in this region, just like Israel. And then it's not until around the 9th/8th century BCE that we begin to see the rise of historical narrative being used in the writings of this area. And so we don't really have the possibility of historical narrative being written in these secondary/territorial states until around the 9th century BCE. So from a historical and a linguistic point of view, this story is already problematic.
And Balaam comes, and as he goes to speak a curse on Israel, a blessing comes out instead because the Lord is speaking through him. Excavations took place here at Deir Alla in the 1960s. And their most significant discovery here came in 1967. And as they were excavating down through these collapsed walls, they noticed pieces of plaster that came from the inside of the wall. And they noticed that on some of these fragments of plaster, there was writing in black and red ink. So in general, this inscription is very fragmentary, but the first line of it is very clear, and when translated reads, "The sayings of Balaam, son of Beor, the man who was a seer." So the same person, the same seer that is talked about in the Bible is also now found independently of the Bible through archaeology, through the excavations in this site. But what does this mean? It means that the places and the events and the people that the Bible is talking about are real, and that the truth claims of the Bible are not based on mythology, but on history.
So this is the Deir Alla inscription, a phenomenally important inscription that is written in a Canaanite dialect that is closely related to Aramaic. It refers to the plural Elohim coming and visiting Balaam in the night. It refers to the Shadain, a plural designation for a class of deity that is probably closely related to the Hebrew title Shaddai. It is a phenomenally important inscription for understanding the ideologies and the theologies and the mythologies of this time period, because the story is very different from what we have in the book of Numbers. But there is one key piece of data that this creator is intentionally omitting from this video, and that is that this inscription dates to about 800 BCE. It is not evidence that this story originates in the 15th century BCE. It is not evidence that the story in the book of Numbers is historical. This is probably a figure who was in circulation, had traditions written about him around this same time period, and the book of Numbers, which critical scholars agree was written no earlier than around 800 BCE, is probably telling their story based on this traditional figure in circulation around 800 BCE and probably after. So this is actually evidence directly against the historical accuracy and the early dating of the composition of the book of Numbers.